Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejohn Sarowick. Hello, Sejohn.
Hey, Dev. Hey, everybody. What's going on?
Before we go much further, I have a message for you, Sejohn, if you can handle it.
Wait, are we in the corrections department?
No, we're not in the corrections department. It's okay, just a message for you.
No, when you said if you can handle it, I was worried that it was going to be something. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Stu says hi. I don't know what that means, but it was said to me, and now it was said on the show, and now we can move past it. I wasn't sure if I was going to say it on the show. I even toyed with it maybe being the title of this episode, and only the listener truly knows if that is the case. But
this is a whole other level of narrowcasting because I have such a tangential relationship to this reference that really this is only for you.
It's only for me and for the person.
Narrowcast of this show just to the two of us. I get that, but man, this is even.
You know what though? Here's the thing. So I'm starting with the most narrow of casting right here. Right. This is Hank Hill's urethra in terms of narrow casting. Right. That's what this is. Holy fuck, I hate myself. But it's a thing that happened over this past week, and we have many things to talk about, not just from this past week, but to kind of catch up on things that we did that were not Brendan Fraser related. Since this is the first episode after Brendan Fraser Month 2024. Thanks to everybody who participated, and congratulations on retaining the title of Poobah of Fraser, Sejohn, even though it burns me up. But now that it's a 2-year title, I don't have to say it all the time. Because you have decreed, please don't call me the Poobah of Fraser at the start of every episode. So that's nice. Back to the narrow casting. On Tuesday, I've been going to acoustic karaoke, and it's been a blast. I've really enjoyed getting out there, singing, I'm making friends there. It's nice to go out to a bar again. I am dipping my toe back into the, going out to bars world that I used to be a pretty big part of. And that's cool. But I was reminded this past Tuesday of one of the issues that comes from visiting a bar in my hometown. And that is sometimes you're going to run into people that you know. And then one step further than that, you might run into somebody who is tangentially connected to somebody that you know. And what the hell is that? Honestly,
I think it's the point of social interaction, Dev. I don't know what to tell you. You go to a bar, you go to a bar in your hometown so that you see people from your hometown. It is kind of the point.
I guess that's true. Well, technically, I don't go to my hometown. It is one town over, because the road that I live off of is the borderline.
Do you imagine if Norm ever walked into Cheers and everybody was just like, Norm, and he was just like, oh, you asshole.
But that's different. Those are the people he expects. That woman inexplicably in a wheelchair in the first episode of Cheers. And I say inexplicably in a wheelchair because there ain't no way that Cheers is freaking handicap accessible.
Okay, well, definitely not the one in Faneuil Hall, but no.
Faneuil Hall one closed, actually. Not to be that guy to
that's
bring
right,
us
I forgot.
down.
Yeah, probably because nobody could get into the fucking thing. But the entire concepted point of Cheers is that
everybody knows your name.
Weird. No. Every episode, as a concept, as a bar, that's the point of Cheers. But as a concept of a show, the entire point was somebody unexpected showing up at the bar. That is literally the plot line of that show.
That is
who's going to be the guest this week? Who's going to be the story kickoff this week? And it is always somebody unexpected walking into the bar.
You've really opened my eyes up here. But here's the thing: had it been the Stu who said hi, that's an episode of Cheers. They never did an episode of Cheers where some woman who's dating a former or married to a former relationship of Diane Chambers came in, saw Diane, and was Sumner says hi. That's not an interesting episode. That's just oh, okay. And moving on.
No, what that is that's a Seinfeld episode, is what that is.
That is a Seinfeld episode. Why the fuck would he do that? So really, it was a congruence of those 2 points. And I wasn't going to bring it up, but it's just one of those things that, I don't I didn't understand the point of it. And I guess that's the weirdest thing about it, because you're right. I have lost that part of going out to the local haunt, right? There's a reason I wouldn't go to local bars on the day before Thanksgiving, because all those assholes that left town are now back for Thanksgiving, and I don't want to run into them, right? I sound like a real misanthrope right now. I wish it were a report episode.
I think there is something to be said about the idea that we have said before on this show. This is not new. We all, as a people, kind of lost something during the pandemic in terms of human interaction and like our ability to, right? And like, as much as you going out to a local bar and then being pissed that you were seeing locals there is one level of that. Another level of that is also randomly walking up to a person to like not even passive, like full frontally assault somebody verbally.
Yeah, I mean, and the weird thing about it was the whole situation of it was they came over. Dale had come out to acoustic karaoke with me, which was fun. She sang, and it was a good time. And so this woman comes over, this woman who I do not know from Eve, right? This woman who could be literally any woman USA. Like, okay. Comes over, says to Dale, nice job. And then, so like, I know that she's capable of charisma, right? I know that she's capable of some personality. And then she willfully decides to shut that off and be like, Stu says hi. And then, okay, like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Now, the reason why I bring it up is like, there's one person that it could be, right? And I'm using this platform here to talk about that. I don't even really care. I haven't seen this person in 14 years. They are a stranger to me. I have not thought about this person, oh my God, for the entire length of Supernatural? Like, Jesus Christ.
Did you kill their father and steal the family treasure? Like, do you now own the ranch or something? Like, what? Like, clearly you did something to deserve some type of long, thought-out plot to just completely. And by the way, this is it. This is the whole plot. There's nothing.
There's nothing more to the plot, right?
Coming up to you at a bar, saying this, and now living rent-free in your head for the rest of your life.
Nah, I mean,
exactly what was the point of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's rent-free. They're kind of like dropping in every time. Talking about it on the show, I'm hoping we'll purge it, but you're right. This is the whole thing. Like, I don't know if I'm obsessing over it. I just think about it and I'm like, the fuck was that? Like, and you're right. That's the plan. That's the whole plot. It did work. I'm talking about it on the show. If they wanted to infiltrate the Say report, congratulations, they did that. But it's just something that I had to share that happened because honestly, like, it has stuck with me. I had plans to go out with some friends yesterday, and then illness ended up kiboshing those. So, like, I haven't had the chance to really purge this evil energy. So that is what I'm hoping to do on this show right now. So,
you ever see the watermelon meme?
No, what where you put
there's like a tweet from so many years ago where somebody said something along the lines of like, a really easy way to like be in somebody's head for the rest of their life is to quietly drop off a watermelon at 4 a.m. on their porch, right? And like that is what this is to me. It's just somebody out there was just like, oh, like, not that they have been planning this their whole life, but literally saw you at the bar, had an immediate thought of, I'm going to fucking ruin him.
Well, I mean, I don't think I'm ruined. Other things have happened over the past week that would, quote unquote, ruined me. That's a good point. We'll see where I am in like 2 weeks. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it is the watermelon. I thought you were talking about putting rubber bands around a watermelon till it fucking explodes. That's my watermelon.
That's not a meme. That's just my fucking like stress dream that I have every other night.
What the fuck does that mean? Is your head the watermelon, Sejohn?
Yes, Devon, and I have severe anxiety.
Oh, I get you. I understand. People that keep putting rubber bands around your head. I will try to do less of that for you as your friend. It's just, I guess, it stuck with me. You're right. They weaseled their way in there. I need to find a way to kill this earworm. That is that moment. Because it's like, I don't have 6 fingers on my right hand. Right? I did not kill their father. I am not prepared to die.
Well, actually, this week they did announce that they've invented the second thumb. Have you heard about this?
No. I mean, I kind of get it because
like
I've seen
some
science fiction.
robotics company. Yeah, some robotics company had like put out a whole bunch of stuff about how they've invented a second thumb that you can put on your hand. You know, like a 3D printed prosthetic. And apparently you're proving all sorts of shit about how much more like efficient your hand can be with it. And so like it's this really wild thing that I I I think in a few years it might not be too unusual to see it as like a, you know, not like a everyday thing, but like a sharper image you might be able to pick up, like a, you know, in like a, what's the Sky Mall, the old magazine you could get on the plane to order shit, right? Like you'll see like a second thumb prosthetic that you can order.
Yeah, that is kind of terrifying, but also cool that like when science fiction becomes science fact, the super humanoids in Evo Force, Exo Squad is the name of the show, not Evo Force. I don't know what the fuck that is. It's probably like a Power Rangers that hasn't been localized yet. But the super humanoids, I can't think of what they call them. Super sapiens, maybe, right? Homo superiors. Those are what they were called. They had two thumbs, like one on where your thumb is and then a thumb on the other side. So, like, way back in science fiction like that. And I have to imagine it's existed in another science fiction as well.
I mean, this is going to become one of those things like that we only use 10% of our brain bullshit that we all know now is just, like, nonsense, right? Like, it's like pop science. That's probably going to be, like, fall into that category. This is not me sitting here talking about how we're all going to evolve a second thumb. But yeah, that was something that was big online this week that it's just interesting that you mentioned that.
I don't know. That's crazy. The second thumb is real. It's not going to help you with video games. I'm going to tell you that. It's going to help you with like real things. Well, like what?
Some
I don't know.
Asshole is going to go like Dark Souls level. Like I've invented a game that can only be played with the second thumb, right? Like it's the only way to win is if you have two thumbs on one hand.
Jeez. I mean,
Then Nintendo will buy it, and it'll become proprietary technology for them on their next system.
The Nintendo second thumb. I'm sure they'd come up with
Twitch or something.
The super thumb. I don't even know. That's crazy. Yeah, no, I don't want it to fix video games.
It's the snut. Super Nintendo Ultimate Thumb. The snut.
I mean, it's so bad. I am excited. In the realm of advancements in Nintendo technology, somebody has developed a full mechanical Super Nintendo controller. Fits in the same chassis and everything. And they're going to be like for testing at Games Done Quick, Summer Games Done Quick. So we're going to see.
Important?
Why is that important? So like you have a mechanical keyboard.
Specifically, yeah.
Yeah. So you have a mechanical keyboard, right? I know because I bought it for you and I've seen the photos. Is the same one I have. So when you press a mechanical keyboard, for example, you know when you press the button, right? What actuates is an actual switch inside of it, as opposed to the technology that currently exists in like all controllers still. I have one controller that has micro switches in it, but most of them are still, they use a silicon pad that is depressed when you push the button, and then it completes a circuit on the circuit board. And that completion of the circuit is what activates whatever the move is. So what they're hoping with a mechanical one is that it's guaranteed to activate and you're going to have some sort of like tactile response. So you can't blame the controller anymore. Like it is just a way to take that part out of the equation.
Yeah, I mean the way that it cuts down on things like lag and vulnerabilities and faulty equipment and all that. It just makes for a better experience in the end. But I just wanted to make sure that we explain that because sometimes we just talk about things without diving into them.
Right.
But yeah, a mechanical SNES pad. Wait, were the original ones were?
They were the same silicone setup.
They were silicone.
Yeah.
Okay, man.
Yeah, it's just crazy going back that far. I mean, that's why and pads fail through use and that's why there was a big market like pre-2020 and then after 2020 there were none left over because everybody just bought them up to buy replacement pads. I mean, I have two new in-box Super Nintendo controllers, but I don't want to break into them yet while I still have the option to do something like switch out the pads and that renew the controller.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what this will do in terms of the drift conversation.
Well, I mean, the drift conversation has supposedly been fixed with Hall Effect sticks, right? I don't know anybody who's had drift on a Hall Effect stick using the magnets.
Right. Yeah,
So
the problem being is that there's a lot of people out there that just don't have that in their hands yet, right? So
yes.
there's still a lot of, there's still a pretty big story of the drift issues with Joy Cons and things like that on original machines, original hardware, and all that.
So we're currently in the 9th generation of consoles. The 10th generation of consoles should introduce Hall effect sticks across the board. We have proven that they are not more expensive than the original analog technology.
You tell me right now, when Switch 2 gets announced this Christmas, like everybody's predicting it is, do you think Nintendo does this? Do you think that this is on the Switch 2?
I do. I honestly do. Because I think that it's the biggest complaint that people have about the Nintendo Switch is the stick drift on the Joy-Cons. So if they can do something that is the same cost, like that's the other thing. Hall effect sticks have proven to not be any more expensive than the current analog technology.
Yeah, well, if it can save them money in the long run, then by not failing, then they definitely will do it. I'm curious to see, like, because like the only argument would be cost, right? Like if it was cheaper to not do them, then obviously that might be like the first run would be those, but then any subsequent runs, like they kind of did with the Switch. But if the cost is negligible, then yeah.
Yeah, by all accounts,
Rather,
the
the cost
cost
difference
is
is
negligible.
negligible.
Yeah, like it's gotten to a point. Like when it first came out, it was prohibitively expensive. I understand why they didn't do it like midstream switch over. But then I say all of this, and one of the draws of the Pro controller from Sony, the Dual Sense, or I don't know what it is. The Dual Sense Pro, I think is the name of it. It's got some wacky name. We have one in the house because Dale, when she was like big into Apex Legends, was breaking controllers left and right. I can say I have never caused stick drift on any of my controllers. So, like, on some level, it feels like a myth to me. But then I go to other people's houses who have it, and I'm like, oh, I guess it really does happen.
Yeah, I've got a PS4 controller that was not the one that came with my PS4, but the one that I bought pretty much immediately after. So I have a white PS4 from back in the day, and I bought a black controller so that I could differentiate between the two. And the black controller has some north drift, like it will definitely drift like up. So I can't really play like shooters or anything with it. But that being said, the white one that I got with the PlayStation doesn't seem to have anything too bad. The battery life on it sucks now, but that's just because it's like 8 years old, more than that even.
Yeah. Almost 10 years old, right? Because you had that PS4 when I visited you.
I bought it but just before Destiny came out in order to have it for Destiny 1.
Gosh.
Yeah, so like so I do have drift on one controller, but I have two other PlayStation 4 controllers in the house that don't really have drift. They've just got other PlayStation 4 controller problems. Yeah, beyond that, it does exist there. But I will say that as far as Switch controllers go, our original Switch that we had in the house, the drift got so bad that we bought another set of controllers, and then even the drift on those got really bad. But luckily, I got a family member that's really into doing the whole like modding and fixing stuff up, and they were very into the idea of ripping a Joy-Con apart to see if they could fix it. And sure enough, they've been able to fix 3 or 4 of them now for us in the house. So that's been really cool. But yeah, the drift on the Joy-Con controllers was just no joke compared to anything else I've ever played.
Yeah, I mean, I've not used Joy-Cons. I don't, except for the games that require them. Like, I got a Pro controller and use that Pro controller. And even that is still going good. I mean, I'm saying all of this and now all of my controllers are going to suddenly malfunction, right? But what I was saying about, so it's called the DualSense Edge. That's the Pro controller that PlayStation has. The whole thing about that one, and the reason why Dale got it, is that it has replaceable stick modules. You can take out the full stick if it starts to drift and replace it. And that's a $20 replacement cost rather than the like $60 replacement cost that Dale was going through like every month. She was like just, I guess, really hard on these controllers. I have no like basis for it. I've never experienced it. I don't know, but I do. I watch her and she's like, look at this. And she will have the drift. And I don't have any way to like, it still doesn't make sense to me because I've never had it happen to me. But the thing that they promised PlayStation was eventually they would have a Hall Effect module so you could swap in for Hall Effect sticks with this. And that's one of the reasons why people were like willing to shell out. It's a $200 controller, the DualSense Edge. And it has been out for like 2 years now, and they have never made good on that. So
that's gross. That's just gross to me.
Yes, that is gross. That is the exact way to put it. And what are you supposed to do about that, right? It's not, and like not even third parties are creating it. So I don't know what you're supposed to do. However, you can buy one of those modules and swap it out for Hall Effect technology, and then you're not, potentially damaging your whole controller. You're only potentially damaging that one module. So, but still is gross that the whole selling point behind it, they have not made good on. So maybe you're right. Maybe they're not going to put Hall Effect technology.
I mean, not to be like a complete jerk, but PlayStation this entire generation has just been a bunch of just empty promises, right? I mean, like somebody was doing a layout the other day online of what actual exclusives truly came out for the PlayStation 5, and it was just kind of like not including so PlayStation 4 would mean it wasn't an exclusive for the PS5, right? Like if they put out a PS4 version, and the number of games that you needed just a PS5 to play, that even then on top of that mattered, to be completely blunt about it, was just like 3-4 games. And it was just like one of those things of just like, and if you miss them, that happens. Like as a gamer, like you make those decisions all the time about what games you're not going to play, what games you are. So like 3 or 4 games over the lifespan of this system is really nothing, meaning that there was just like no real incentive for anybody to get a PS5, including PlayStation players, because most of the stuff they wanted to do was still coming to the PS4.
Right. Which is crazy. And that's all because of like supply chain and all this other stuff. Them launching in the middle of the pandemic and then not being able to provide the systems, but still having people want to play these games, like that really shot them in the foot. And moving to PC release as well, though that's a whole other kettle of fuck you, with the fact that you need a PlayStation Network account to play those games.
They still want your data, brother. That's right. What it is.
Yeah. So it's crazy. And it's a really good transition into the state of play or state of meh that happened over this past week from PlayStation. There's one game that I care about from it, and that is Astrobot, because that looks incredible. But everything else looks like hot garbage. Specifically Concord, which has been the big one. Like,
just so that everybody understands where we're going to come out in this conversation. I don't necessarily agree that everything else looked like hot garbage. I will say this: there isn't a single thing that I'm like waiting for, but there are things in there that I see the potential for them hitting pretty big, right? The problem that PlayStation's having right now is, they've got a huge PR nightmare on their hands since all of the Helldivers bullshit, and then as you pointed out, since then all of the like, hey, you still need a PSN account to play this shit.
Yeah, that
has happened subsequently, right? The God of War one is weird because people are bitching and moaning about a DLC. You would need the original game anyway to play, which means that would have encountered this issue. I don't know. People are just looking for a
but the DLC, the game and the DLC come together. So it's not like Ragnarok was available before on PC and didn't require it. I think,
right. That's what I'm saying, is that it was already out there. So people now bitching like, oh, have you heard about this new God of War release? That's going to require a sign-in too. And it's like, my brothers, that's already part of the conversation. Like that is, you have clearly not actually been including yourself in this conversation until it affected you. And now that it's affecting you because you were interested in God of War, now you want to listen up. Like, thank you. I guess I appreciate that you're listening now. But like, that's where I think the real kind of grumpiness for me kind of comes in. It's just like, God of War has already been out for a bit and available, and you already needed that sign in to do that. That was already part of this. Right,
but again, God of War has not been available on PC before. That doesn't come out till September. It was available, it was a PS5 exclusive. So it's news because the PC version will also require it. That is a legitimate complaint. The only way to play it before was on PS5. Now it's coming to PC.
I thought that because there was God of War, because like I own a God of War game on Steam, don't I? Maybe I'm thinking of like
maybe, but God of War Ragnarok is the sequel that came out. Like, again,
oh
that's the thing. So there's the God of War that was the PS4 game, came out like 2018, and then they remastered it for PS5, and then they released a PS5 sequel to that called Ragnarok that is going to also include the Valhalla DC. But if you're going to play it when it drops on PC in September, you need a PlayStation Network account.
I mean, all right, let me ask this question then. Are there any PlayStation games that are PC ports that don't ask for this?
I mean, I don't know. I've never played Spider-Man. Like, that's the only other one I can think of. Like, I've only recently got into PC gaming in any sort of, like, significant manner.
So, yeah. Because I think that's going to be the next thing then, right? Is, like, the next question for me is like, have they ever not asked you to have a PSN account while you play a PlayStation exclusive game that they are then releasing on PC? Which is a weird that vocab to talk about, but it's the only way I can make it clear.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, because that's the thing, is that any PlayStation game, I have a PlayStation to play it on, and that requires a PlayStation Network account that way. I mean, it doesn't really. You can play as a guest on it, so it's. You're right, though.
Unless it's one of those ones that needs to fucking ping somewhere every 20 minutes, and it's like there's like online components that require like this requires online connectivity, and if you don't have a PSN account, you don't have that connectivity, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Looking at the actual thing, I mean, the Silent Hill 2 remake, I know I'm gonna play it, and just because I had never played Resident Evil 2, like really, and that remake was incredible. Even though Silent Hill 2 does not look good, I will admit that, I'm still going to give the remake a try.
That's one of the ones that I think has the potential to hit big, but I am not necessarily personally like super jazzed about it. But there is still a lot of potential there for that one, because one of the big things about the Resident Evil 2 remake and why it hit so hard was that it reintroduced the game to an audience that wasn't there. It wasn't there then, right? Like so there's so many more people that play those types of games, and there's just so many more gamers, and there's so many like there's a lot going for it. So I don't necessarily want to sit here and be like that game's gonna fall on its face, but I am with you in that there's some stuff about it that does looks a little unfortunate. I guess
yeah, that's a solid adjective for it. Yeah, I mean, I guess Dynasty Warriors. I love the Dynasty Warriors style games, but I don't know about that one. I was excited. Oh, Dynasty Warriors is back, but then am I gonna play it? Like, I always kind of play those ones once they're bargain bin. So that's it. But the big one was Concord, because it looked like a lot of fun. And then I'm like, but I bet it's gonna be like an Overwatch 5v5 shooter. And I called that like immediately. Like, it looked like, oh, it's going to be like Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the secret best games that has released in this like modern generation of games. Because it is a narrative. It does not have DLC that is required. It does not have like pay to win options or anything like that. It doesn't have a roadmap. We built one game and let it and let it go. And I mean, it kind of failed spectacularly. It felt like what Square Enix was doing was saying, oh, this is what you wanted the Avengers to be? We'll do it with Guardians of the Galaxy. And if it hit gangbusters, then they would have been like, oh, we were wrong, sorry, but it didn't do that.
Yeah, I kind of get a little bitter about that because of the ways that everybody reacted to Suicide Squad, and like specifically the Arkham game there. Yeah. What's the full name of it? Kill the Justice League. Yeah. Yeah, like the ways everybody kind of talked about how that game wasn't what they wanted, all I could think that entire time was, have you played Guardians of the Galaxy then? Because it really sounds like that's the game you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was excited about both Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. 2 follow-ups in the Arkham Asylum, like, world. And then, like, I watched the gameplay, and I'm like, but this doesn't look like what I wanted this game to be. Like,
God, imagine if Rocksteady had been the ones to make Gotham Knights and not bothered with the Suicide Squad game.
Yeah, or imagine if the Suicide Squad game could have been like the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Imagine
or Gotham Knights. I would have even taken a game closer to Gotham Knights.
Yeah, it's just, and now that whole thing with like it's Mr. Freeze, but Mrs. Freeze, and it's because they're from another universe. It's not
the
necessarily
multiverse stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
Which is their big excuse for being able to bring in a bunch of Jokers. That's really the only reason they ever wanted to do that. Is they were like, okay, in this universe, Joker is dead, so let's create a multiverse so we can bring Joker back. And on top of that, we get the added benefit of being multiple Jokers.
Yep. I mean, I don't know. I haven't touched that game. The fact that it basically released in an unplayable, but also you just beat the game version was crazy to me. Like, they sold the whole early access to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Anybody who had early access, the game was nigh unplayable, but also, if you were able to play it, it cleared the game for you, which then locked you out of a bunch of story content. Like, what the fuck is that, Sejohn? Why would I want to give that game my money? Like, and
No, 100%.
Yeah, and like Mortal Kombat 1. I was so excited for Mortal Kombat 1 that when they did the pre-release on that one, I'm like, oh, is it digital only? Or if I go to a store right now, can I buy this game? And I went to a store and I could buy that game. So I bought the game 3 days before release date, which kind of makes it feel like I bought it on its release date. But, you know, that's just me quibbling right there, right? It came with all the guest characters, which were exciting characters, right? Peacemaker gets me excited. Quan Chi doesn't really. Shang Tsung doesn't really. Omni-Man and Homelander don't really. But, you know, Peacemaker, I like Peacemaker. I really liked that show. Once I cleared the story, do you know how many times I've played Mortal Kombat 1, Sejohn?
I'll give it a big old fat 0. Probably.
Yeah, right. Not even one time after clearing the story mode. Because the story mode had a really cool kind of ending that also didn't make any sense and then also didn't translate to the gameplay of Mortal Kombat 1. I mean, I say that too, but like Tekken 8, as much as I loved Tekken 8, I haven't completed the story mode on that one either. But that's because I just want to fight. Like, that game just allowing you to get into the action online really kind of fucked that story mode up.
But that's kind of what happened to me with Street Fighter when we went on our little Street Fighter adventure. Is that like, but the big thing for me was that I just found myself just wanting to walk around, getting into fights or like going online and going into the arcade. Essentially, once you got introduced to that whole like casino fight arena like area, I was just doing a bunch of that silly shit all the time, and like so I kind of never really followed up on the rest of the story of that game.
And it's one of those things, like, I finished the story of that game, and I'm very happy that I did, but it's not a Street Fighter story. It is a Final Fight story. And then once you complete the Final Fight story of it all, there's like 20 people in the world who are the greatest fighters in the world, and you have to go challenge them. And when they say they're the greatest fighters in the world, I'm talking they're like the highest level, like extra HP, extra power, and it's like, I'm nowhere near prepared to fight these people. And honestly, Street Fighter 6, I don't know the path to be prepared to fight these people.
Yeah. You have not really made it very, other than just get good. Like, there's not really anything more in this game that I could do. And here's the thing about fighting games. I am not the get good, I am not that caliber of player.
I am currently watching a show on Netflix. It's an anime. I'm 2 episodes in. I'm upset that I'm only 2 episodes in because I absolutely loved the first 2 episodes. It's from 2018, possibly 2019. It's one of those. It's called High Score Girl. And it's like an anime romance, but it's set in 1991 against the backdrop of Street Fighter 2. Like, Street Fighter 2 has released. And the main character is this boy, and he was like kind of the best at Street Fighter at his arcade. And then he got challenged one day, and it was by like a rich, popular girl from his grade. And they're in 6th grade, just to like put that where it is. And she beat him and ended up going on a 29 game streak. And he like kept, every time he could try, he'd try again and she'd beat him. And then on the 30th, he ended up beating her, but like using kind of forbidden tactics. Like he turtled with Guile or he throw manipulated. Like, it was pretty, wicked cool, because, like, they paused the show to explain the techniques he was doing. So it's like I was learning while being entertained. It was like edutainment. I hate myself. I'm sorry for the bit. And one of the things later on in the first episode is she beats like a street art cabinet of Street Fighter 2. Like, it's just outside of a store, but it only has 2 buttons and is missing the joystick like topper. So like it's hard to hold, and you only have like low kick and I think mid punch, and everything else is stolen. And she's able to beat the game, and he's just like, how does she do that? And it's like, she got good. She just got like really good at the game. Like, that's the storyline of it. And then the blossoming friendship, and I don't know. But I have a problem about High Score Girl. Thank you for indulging me, Sejohn. I appreciate it. Or maybe you went to go use the bathroom. But in the first game, when she does it, she's like, oh my god, she managed to beat Vega with Dalsim. And I don't know, are you familiar with the name change from Japan to America with Street Fighter?
Valsim is not one I recognize. Should I?
What? Dalsim. Dalsim is he's the Indian mystic who uses yoga fire.
Oh, yeah.
And stretches his arms and everything.
Where's the name change?
So the name changes are 3 of the bosses. Sagat is always Sagat, the Muay Thai fighter who's missing an eye because of his fight with Ryu in the original Street Fighter. The other 3 characters, as known in America, Balrog the boxer, Vega the like claw fighter, and M. Bison the dictator, right?
Right.
In Japan, Balrog's name was M. Bison as a nod to Mike Tyson. But then, like, we can't do that. The dancer character, the claw guy, he was Balrog. And then the dictator was Vega. So him saying, I can't believe she beat Vega with Dalsim on this broken controller, he means the final boss. He doesn't mean just the claw fighter in the cage match from Spain. And that's like a huge difference, right? But like, it's a localization issue, right? Like, whoever was localizing the show heard Vega, did not know about the boxer, the dancer, and the dictator, which is what they're referred to in like international competitions because of the name difference between the US and Japanese release. I don't know anything about Europe.
See, now this is an interesting thing about translation, though, right?
Yeah.
Because like where do they supposedly live in the show?
They live in Japan.
So it would be Vega. Right?
It would be Vega, right? But but if you're localizing it for America, you're doing it in English.
That's not just America.
But okay, yeah, that's right. But you're right. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah. That's the thing you got to remember is that English is not just an American language.
Right. But the meaning behind him saying, "I can't believe she beat Vega with Dalsim on this broken control pad," is that I can't believe she beat the game. It's not, I can't believe she beat the second to last boss. That. I know that. You did. Would you have known that?
Right. I would have understood that it was a big deal by the nature of how it is presented in the show. Context clues would have at least allowed me that.
Okay. But then there's a second part of this story. And the second part of the story is that in the second episode, everybody is talking about how Final Fantasy IV is going to come out right before summer break. So that all the kids can like spend their summers playing Final Fantasy IV, which was Final Fantasy II over here. But again, over there, they should definitely be referring to it as Final Fantasy IV. So I don't have a problem with that. But then the main character guy, I don't know his name, and I feel bad about that. But the High Score Girl has not talked in the 2 episodes that I have watched. So like, it's just kind of him with nobody ever referring to him. So I don't know his name. Because no one ever says his name, and I haven't looked it up. But while everybody is talking about the Super Nintendo, he's crowing about the superior system, the TurboGrafx 16. And he's like, I can't believe you guys are still wasting your time on the Super Nintendo while the TurboGrafx 16 is out there. TurboGrafx 16 this, TurboGrafx 16 that, blah, 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 blah. But Sejohn, in Japan, the TurboGrafx-16 was called the PC Engine. So why did they localize that system to its American name, but not the boss of Street Fighter 2?
Yeah. Well, so do you know anything about like where the localization is
No, I haven't looked into that stuff. It's just like it was an interesting moment because
was it only America, or was it also possibly in Europe in certain places, or other areas in Asia where they speak the English language?
Our favorite thing, it is a Netflix original. So, but it's not really a Netflix original. I don't believe it was made just for Netflix. It's just the way that, you know, they paid for exclusivity in America, probably, right? And that's why they get to call it a Netflix original. So I would imagine that the English translation was outsourced to somebody that is under their umbrella. You would know more about that than me, as you are an employee of them.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix has all sorts of influence in all sorts of markets. So, I mean,
yeah.
People will default to thinking about Netflix as an American company for good reason. There's plenty of conversations where that's fine. But in terms of like the actual making of stuff, so like for instance, was it the Squid Games reality show that they got into a bunch of trouble for?
Yeah.
Even though that was a Netflix original and all of that, that was being filmed in England. And part of the reason why they got in as much trouble as they did is that a lot of the stuff that they were doing were breaking specifically British or UK based like labor laws and safety regulations and things like that. Like there's a certain level to there's a certain way in which these things are made that they can still be made all over the world just because they're an American company. So yeah, I mean, so I would look into, you know, I would want to know some stuff about like who does the translations. Does it change from episode to episode? Is it a consistent company doing the translation? Like there's all sorts of things that can go into this sort of stuff. But yeah, assuming an American focused like English translation is not necessarily always wrong, but like there's no guarantee of that, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. It kind of feels like it because of the Netflix of it all, right? I mean, I really enjoy it, but that was one of those it's licensed by Netflix, so it did exist and then they licensed it. And I can't see anything right now looking for it. I can tell you the kid's name. It's Haru Yaguchi. Well, that's easy to remember. Yaguchi. Yeah, so he's great. He's just looking, and the high score girl is Akira Ono. And yeah, but that whole thing where like we're gonna do all this stuff about the TurboGrafx-16, and I'm like, but he clearly has a PC Engine. The TurboGrafx-16 is a redesign of that console for American release. So it was just this weird moment of, but after the first episode, I like paused and said, I'm watching it with Dale, and I'm like, who's Vega to you? And she's like, he's a guy with a claw. And I'm like, all right, but to Yaguchi, he is the final boss. Like that
to me that just sounds like good trivia. Like that's all that sounds like to me is like good like you that's like a nice little Easter egg for people that actually play
Street Fighter 2.
Like no, yeah. Like that's what you're describing to me sounds like more like fan service than any type of mistake.
I don't know. I didn't think it was a mistake until he wasn't calling it the PC Engine. He was calling it the TurboGrafx-16. So that's, you know what I could do? I could watch the Japanese version with the subtitles. I would also
then consider watching the original version and
seeing what he says there. That's interesting. I don't know. It's just been an interesting time. The show's fantastic. I recommend the show, even after 2 episodes, especially if you're like a big kind of like 90s gamer. They play through Final Fight in the first episode, and that is fantastic. And they really do. You know what it feels like to me? And, you know, fuck me for saying it. I apologize to everybody. It's like if The Wizard were a TV show. That is what High Score Girl is. It's like a TV adaptation of The Wizard. And I know it's much more than that, but it does kind of feel that way. With the silent, like, female protagonist who is this, like, prodigy at video games. And the whiny Fred Savage-esque kid who's just like trying to figure out why.
Yeah.
But it's good. I'm enjoying that. I don't even remember what we were talking about before I got to High Score Girl because it fills me with such joy.
Just yeah. All right. Anything else you've been up to this week?
I mean, not really. No, that's not 100% true. I'm beta testing a game for Elden Pixels, called The Prisoning Fletcher's Quest. I have completed it 2.5 times. I will say that. It's very interesting being a beta tester on a game. I can talk about my experience with it. They have given me the okay to do that, as long as I say that I'm playing on a beta build of the game. And right now, I'm at a crossroads, Sejohn, and if you'd like to advise me here, I have found like ways to cheese half of the bosses, like really, really heavy. This is not intended type stuff. I should still report that, right? Like I should,
100%, man.
Yeah, okay.
You're not one of the creative people on this. You don't get to make the decision whether or not that shit stays
in or not, right? But it's like, it is one of those situations where, like,
depending on depending on what their mindset is as developers, you could tell them all that, and they could just be like, okay.
You don't want to keep it in there.
You know,
I mean, one of them is crazy. The first one, it's half the fight that you can cheese, and then the other half you actually still have to do something, and that's
there are certain bosses in like Dark Souls games that just can't so that people are just like, it's not worth it, just cheese it, right? Like there's so many instances where this is an acceptable way for people to do what they do.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool. The guy gets hypnotized to go into his own mind, and then it is a bunch of like video game references. Like it opens the way that Axiom Verge does, where like you come out of a pod, except the 4 bosses are there like to greet you, to be like, we need to stop them from destroying our world. So that's cool. You start the game off stark fucking naked, which is interesting. You're a male character. He got a little pixel penis. I'll admit that. And you're not able to like interact with anything until you get clothing. So like your first quest is to clothe yourself, which is a really interesting like opening quest. And it kind of makes sense that like you wind up in the shores of your mind and you have nothing. Like I really dug that. I mean,
it sounds like ludologically, like as far as like mechanics goes, right, that they're trying to show you how to navigate around the world, and that you don't necessarily have to like dive into like attacking stuff and things like that. Is that what it feels like?
There's really nothing that you have to well, no, that's not true. That's a total fucking lie. Because the first section is kind of just how you can like learn your jump height, how to navigate, what certain blocks represent. And then once you get through that, like you get to your first shop, and he opens up a door for you. And outside of that shop, there is a Mario Brothers style flagpole. You jump on that flagpole, you slide down, and then you go into a castle, and you talk to the same shop owner, but he doesn't recognize you. Like that, I love that type of humor in games. And he's like, yeah, so like you got to find clothes and you got to find a gun if you want to be able to like take advantage of my services. So that leads to a dungeon where you have to survive only by dodging things until you get your clothing, and then you get your gun the next room. And so it is.
That is a really interesting way to start a game, because generally you kind of want to start with a little bit of like a power trip for your users, so that they kind of feel like, okay, I got this, I can make it through this, you know. And then you pull back on that and you show them how little they know about the game.
Right. And so it's like this really interesting thing. And then even when you finally do get your weapon, it's a pistol, like he's dressed like a cowboy. He's a honky tonk man. He's got the cowboy hat, the shirt and pants. And then your health bar is your hat. So like when you get hit, you lose your hat. And then if you get hit again, you die. And you can find replacements for your hat like around, or anytime you get to the shop, you're given another hat. So it's an interesting, like, I like that life mechanic where you don't have a life bar, and like 2-hit death, so it's not crazy difficult. The other great thing about this game is that it's procedurally generated, and I didn't think I was gonna love that, but as I've now played through it 2.5 times, I am like really on board for it. Because it's not, the map itself is always static. So imagine like Metroid, and the fact that like, you go so far, you wind up in Norfair. You go so much further, you're like in Brinstar. Like, that's how it is. And those rooms are always going to be the same. Like, the structure is the same. Any of the save rooms are always going to be in the same location. Any of the pickups that you need to collect, because, it's like a Metroidvania, but then like, oh, you need a lemon to progress. You need this coin in order to pay to open the door. Those are always in the same static location as well. What is procedurally generated is the rooms that will challenge you between like the save shop and the tire that you need to collect at the end of that room.
Yeah. There's I know that the Cadence of Hyrule Necrodancer Zelda crossover game really kind of dives into that. Like, the overworld map is everything's going to be the same, but it's going into the dungeon rooms. Those are what get like randomized and stuff like that. And I think certain loot that's where I'm trying to remember if all loot is static. So like, you always know where to go to get the boots. You always know where to go to get to get Rock's Feather, that kind of stuff. Or if that changes. That's the only thing I can't remember. But I do know that the overworld map always stays the same, and it's the inner dungeons that get all twisty. And that's really cool because like you have the ability to kind of pick and choose what you want to do with that. I think Nobody Saves the World also had a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, the dungeons were always different in Nobody Saves the World.
Right.
For better or for ill.
But the overworld map was always static, right?
Yes.
Like you were starting that game where to go for certain dungeons and stuff. Yeah.
And like that works in a game like that, like a dungeon crawler like that. This is the first kind of Metroidvania I've seen that in. I think like Chasm had a similar sort of like style like that. But I never played Chasm because I was not interested in it. And I didn't know going in that this game was procedurally generated. I went in knowing nothing about this game. Just like, oh, you're giving out codes for people to test. I'd like a code if possible. And I had like previously, and I don't think this is the reason why, but they did the Always game, Always Quest, and Always Legacy. And Always Quest they did an NES build of, like on an actual cartridge, can be played on original NES hardware. And that one, I beta tested that NES build, and I broke a bunch of stuff. Because they're like, you shouldn't be able to get to any rooms on like this area. And then like using a couple of items in, tandem, I was able to get up there. And so that like, I've worked with these guys before, kind of. Not in like this one where like we want to know your thoughts about the game, what you like, what you don't like. And that's why I question, like, do I report the fact that when you're fighting the horse boss, if you stay right next to the door where you enter, the horse cannot touch you. Or like you fight a flying car eventually, and if you go underneath the car, it can hit you at the beginning of the fight, but once you do enough damage, you can go lower than the life bar. And not only go low enough that it can't touch you, but also go to the other side of the life bar and just sit there and avoid attack for forever. So like it's
I think you definitely do need.
Yeah,
to,
those are the things to report.
About.
Yeah,
but then like don't, as long as you're not holding them to like to this needs to be fixed, quote unquote, because maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's just the way they want it to work. But yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I like it for the horse boss because it's only half the fight, and then you actually have to move from that safe spot and engage. For the car fight, I like it because I got there way too early in the game, and that's not necessarily true. Because one of the other things is, so the pistol you get, you start with one bullet, and it shows on your inventory bullets 1, which indicates that you're going to be able to collect additional bullets. But I figured I'd find them in the world, right? That they'd just be like static pickups. No, once you beat the bosses, they go to a central location. And if you talk to them there, they upgrade your weapon and give you additional bullets. And there was like nothing to steer you towards that. So like that, I'm going to mention that as well. But the absolutely best part about this game that I've been playing and testing is there is a karaoke platforming section. That is like one of the most inspired things that I have done in a video game in a long time. Because
that's sick, dude.
Yeah, like you
great.
ride onto lyrics and you have to like jump and makes you do it. Like, it's kind of a precision platformer. The procedural generation of it, like, I really enjoy, because sometimes you'll get like the hardest fucking level right at the start next to the save room, and then everything else is easy. But if you die, even with like easier levels, you still got to go through that crazy thing. Or you'll get like the hardest room that might be available in like the available room types. I got it like 3 times in a row, and that was like soul crushing, because there was no victory in completing it. Because now do it again. Now do it again. But the last thing about it, and this is the surprising part about it, right, is I was a little nervous about the procedural generation until I realized rooms can repeat, and that's just part of it. But going through a room left to right can be a completely different experience than going from it right to left. And that really opened my eyes as to what a procedurally generated Metroidvania style game can be. Where like, oh, I know this room, but I don't know this room from this side. Right? Like, it's really tickled my brain and made me excited. And that's been the bulk of the back half of my week. I got that on Thursday, and I've been playing through. I've been doing runs every day since. I haven't done one yet today. But Thursday I only got halfway through before I had to go do something, and then I restarted. But yeah, so that's my story with that. And also, like, I just played a bunch of games in in May, and I kind of want to just, like, name check a couple. First, I need to apologize to Gravity Circuit. I definitely talked about it last year.
Yeah.
And it probably should have been my game of the year. I will admit that freely right now. But then Grimace's birthday came out, and I completely forgot about it. But Gravity Circuit just celebrated its, like, 1-year anniversary. And it was very cheap on Steam. And people were playing it again, and it got me to go back and finally 100% it. I think I might have mentioned this somewhere. But in 100%ing it, I realized just how good Gravity Circuit is as a game. Now, part of that is the fact that in their January 2024 update, they added palette chips that makes Gravity Circuit, a game that was already being compared to Mega Man, more like Mega Man. Because you can.
I was about to say, if I remember correctly, this is the like Mega Man-y one from last year that hit pretty big, right?
Yeah,
like,
it hit pretty big, and I beat it twice on both PlayStation 3, 4, and 5, and I bought it on Steam because I was just so into it. And then, like I'm saying, Gravity's birthday, Grimace's birthday, completely came in and overshadowed this game for me, which is crazy when you consider it's a 5-level marketing tool from McDonald's. But it was just
some of our favorite games from back in the day were marketing tools. Cool spots to fucking shit.
It really is, and they did a good job with Grimace's birthday. But yeah, so going back to Gravity Circuit, it's like Mega Man, but now in each level of the bosses, you can find a palette chip that allows you to paint yourself like the boss, and you get their special ability. So that is a huge change to the game because it makes it more Mega Man-like. Mm-hmm. And that's what everybody was like, oh, it's like a Mega Man game. But it wasn't like a Mega Man game because the central focus of a Mega Man game, gaining the powers of your enemies, was not really part of it. Like, you could get like burst moves that were semi-inspired by their own burst moves.
Sure,
but
I think there is more to a Mega Man game than just that. While that is the largest component, there's still things to be said about the, robot humanoids going around in a dystopian world taken over by there's a lot of other Mega Man elements in it, and like the platforming, like just to get down to some of the mechanics. So yes, you didn't necessarily get the ability to gain those powers, but now you do.
Yeah, now you do, and it really, And then the best one is if you complete the boss gauntlet, you get a chip that gives you all of the powers of the bosses, and that really makes you feel invincible in that game.
But here's the thing, though. That strikes me as one of those things, this happens all the fucking time in video games, of like, you finally get to that, you get that power, but there's nothing left to do in the game once you've got like there's no benefit to having it at that point because you've already achieved everything else in the game.
So there's New Game Plus, and then additionally, with the most recent update, they have added a harder hard mode that like gives all of the bosses 3 health bars instead of 2.
And you can bring this stuff into it?
You can bring all that stuff into it via New Game Plus.
Okay. Well, there
so
you go, then.
there is like, and there's a mode, and I'm never going to beat this mode, though. There's a prize if you do. I'm not going to do it. I'm just telling you right now, stay the fuck away from me, this game. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get sucked in. There's like a one-hit kill.
Like Peter Molyneux's God box bullshit all over again.
Yeah. It is one-hit kill, no saves. So, like, essentially, you have to get through the whole game without dying. And you die on one hit. And if you can do that, you get some sort of special ending. And you know what? I don't need that special ending. I'm sorry. Your game is already very difficult.
Well, I don't know why I didn't realize this when I played it, but did you never touched the ukulele sequel, did you? The Impossible Lair?
The Impossible Lair? No, I didn't. I've wanted to, but nah.
I would be very curious to hear about you diving into it sometime if it ever goes. It's always on like mega sale because those games always drop down to like $7 because they're they rightfully not well loved. Like I have an interesting fascination with those games and kind of do like some of the stuff in them, but I understand why they are not at
beloved.
The level that some. Yeah, I would say Impossible Lair is a much more solid game than the first one ever was. But anyway, all of that aside, the bit in that game is it opens up and you have access to the final level immediately, but there is a lot of stuff in the way that kind of stops you from getting through it, right? And then what you can do is if you collect throughout the game, you can collect essentially shields, right? Like that's kind of the core concept of the game is that you can collect more and more and more and more shields so you get through harder and harder and harder levels because you can just get hit with more shit, right? And then so the idea is eventually you end up with enough shield built up that you can go through this impossible lair, right? I don't know why I never really thought about it, but you could totally get through the Impossible Lair without ever playing the rest of the game. You can actually finish that level. You just have to be really fucking good. And it's apparently become like a huge thing in that game, like in the speedrunning community for that game, to just get through that fucking level. And it's amazing watching people like get through some of that shit. But I just learned that this week.
Yeah, I've watched speedruns of it, but I've never watched anybody just do the lair. But the speedrun like collects the bare minimum amount of those like B shields, right? Because it's the main B guy from Ukulele, and then like a queen bee who is like challenging him for rule of the area, right? I'm pretty sure that's the story of that game.
Something like that. It's impenetrable, like most things about Ukulele.
Is the trouser snake back? Because that was hilarious.
Yes. Yeah. Trousers around somewhere. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's one that I would be interested in. And I mean, like, one of the things is what got me into more of this style of gaming is the fact that I finally opened up my Steam Deck. I got one and I'm like, I don't really know if I'm going to use this. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But then like I had that last week of May off, so I opened it up to be doing that. And playing on the Steam Deck has been great. And I've rediscovered a bunch of the games that I've had in my library, but I've just never played. One of them was, I ended up buying Record of Lodos, the Labyrinth game. Wonder Labyrinth. I love that game. I beat that on Xbox Game Pass, but then it went off of Xbox Game Pass. So when I saw a bundle that included that game and 2 other games that I didn't really care about, but the bundle was the same price as if I just bought Wonder Labyrinth, I bought those 3 games. So I finally tried out one of them called Drainus. Have you played Drainus? Are you familiar with Drainus?
I have not played Drainus, no.
Okay, so you know how we have this rule on the Save Report that I'm not allowed to play Life Force?
Okay.
First of all, I beat Life Force this year. I want to put that out there. I have completed that game. So, like, still don't let me play that game because it does suck me in. But I did finally beat it, like, early in this year. So we might have to bring that up at the next council meeting if we keep that as a mandate for the Save Report rules. Going forward, Drainus is like Life Force or Gradius or that. The difference is that you get to pick your like 5 upgrade tree. So you get to choose when you have 1 power-up, what that means for your shot. When you have 2 power-ups, what that means. So you get to mix and match and make your perfect sort of Gradius ship. And that has been awesome. Like, that game was incredible. I finished it twice. I completed all the achievements, because the other part of it is in addition to this, like, all of the Gradius styles that you can collect in the game being this thing that allows you to build your ship up. If you hold what would usually be the bomb button in a game like that, you put up a Drainus shield, and that will absorb certain colored attacks, and then you can release that energy. And it's just like a quick 6-level game, but then the story of it is that a little frog from the future has come back to change the past in order to make the future not suck. And then at the end of the first loop of the game, you time travel back to play that one differently. And then there's like huge reveals about other people who have access to time travel, and like it became this huge game that I was not expecting to be as in-depth or enjoyable. Like, it's very cool.
Nice.
So
cool,
that's the other big one. I don't think there's anything else that, like, I certainly want to... I mean, I started Stardew, because Sejohn gifted me a copy of Stardew. And that's where I learned that I am an antisocial gamer. And I'm very sorry to say that, but playing Stardew Valley, I do not give a shit about the town.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Look, there's all different styles of play. Your style may evolve over the years if you're somebody that continues to play. I'm not just talking to like you, Dev. I mean in general, right? But when it comes to the Stardew community, it is full of people that are like, oh yeah, I don't talk to the townsfolk, or I specifically don't talk to this townsfolk, or there's definitely people that are in that. Like, don't you call yourself antisocial because in the game you're not talking to anybody, but I hope you understand that like you are not alone in like,
well, that's good to know. That's one of the reasons I brought it here, because I'm like, I don't care about them. And also, it is very difficult to unlearn my mentality from my Harvest Moon days. Because having an actual stamina bar fucking sucks. Because, like,
there's things you can do about that.
Okay.
There's a lot of the drive in that game is working your way towards not having to worry about that sort of stuff.
Cool.
Whether it's getting better tools, upgrading yourself, eating the right food every day. Like there's certain things that you do where that doesn't become a problem, but you do need to. That is the game part of the game, right? Is figuring that sort of shit
that out. And I don't want that to be like ruined for me, but I was, first of all, the first thing that got to me is using my basic Harvest Moon like mentality in the fact that, oh well, I have to make 3x3, like I can't do a 3x3. I have to leave the bottom one empty, otherwise I won't be able to water the middle plant. And, like, that's not a problem in Stardew Valley. They fixed that issue from Harvest Moon.
No, and in fact, depending on what kind of tools that you get into building for yourself later, you might want to use different configurations because of what you'll be able to do. It's heavily influenced by Harvest Moon more than any other farming sim out there. It definitely has elements of other. Harvest Moon was always kind of concerned to apes, like essentially didn't like the way certain Harvest Moon games had been going, and so decided to make the game that they wanted instead, right? So Harvest Moon was kind of the impetus game for this series, so you're not too far off in feeling that.
Yeah. I mean, and I only ever played the first Harvest Moon. I will put that out there as well. I never went much deeper into the Harvest Moon series. So they may have added stamina by like the second game, and I sound like an idiot saying that. But that first one on the SNES, where I could basically, like, every day I could just have a routine, and my stamina did not affect that. Like, it is not working with my first experiences in Stardew, and that is frustrating me. And then, based on everything that's presented to me, it feels like, well, the only way to fix this is to talk to these townsfolk. And I'm like, I don't really care about these townsfolk, though. I want to deal with this farm that is a mess. I hate this messy farm.
Yeah. No, I always spend my first week doing cleanup duty and stuff too. I don't talk to people for a bit first and all that. It becomes more um it becomes more worth talking to people later on as you learn like, oh, I need this thing from somebody, and so you start talking to them, and then after a while you just kind of realize you've just gotten to know them pretty well because you've been going on these, like the guy that presents you with like a fishing pole. I don't know if you've gotten that far yet.
I have
but,
gotten a
like,
fishing
that
pole,
kind of
yes.
stuff. Yeah, right.
I don't know how to
so you end up
fish.
doing a little
I
bit more
suck
time
at it.
talking to Willie, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing other stuff since it, but like I did start it. I'm excited to have it, right? Because I know that it is this untapped resource that I could fall deep into. But my first impressions were, well, this is like Harvest Moon, except with like the worst part of any video game, a stamina bar. Why don't I go play Harvest Moon again? And it's like, well, because you beat Harvest Moon. Like I got Harvest Moon. I mean, it was that beautiful summer where I had infinite rentals from the All-Star Video or the Major Video. So like I just kept renting that game and beat the game. Like it's a 2-year cycle, and I got to the 3rd year. Like that makes you feel like you did a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
And that was without any sort of guides or guidance. Just the only guidance I had was make sure that you plant 3-2-3 so that you can water and harvest everything.
Yeah, I will say that I am also, and this is also another thing that varies among Stardew players, but I am also the kind of Stardew player that has the wiki pretty much at the ready nowadays. Like, I challenged myself when the 1.6 came out to try and get one of the new farms built and get the community center in that farm squared away without having to look at the wiki the entire time, because it would be the first time in years that I had played Stardew and not had the wiki just like literally up on the screen next to me. And that was fun. That was cool. But I definitely hit a moment kind of towards the end of that journey where I just couldn't figure out, like, there's certain times of the year and certain places where only certain fish come out, and you need specific fish in certain cases, or like you need a specific plant to grow, and you're just like, I can't remember what season that grows in, or like where I can even get the seeds for that. And so I did eventually end up having to break that rule for like the last couple of pieces for the community center. But all in all, I was pretty proud of myself, and within a year in game I was able to pretty much finish the community center. I needed to go one more season and use the wiki in order to kind of finish it out. And like that felt pretty good after like I said, like the last like 5-6 years of that game, like pretty much consistently having the wiki at the ready in case I had any questions about like where to find a thing or like where a person was.
That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for the release of Vampire Survivors on PlayStation, so that I can play that game and like so Operation Guns came out in May as well, May 9th. Wasn't just Animal Well, the Contra crossover, because we're going to do a crossover with Konami, but not Castlevania. Why would Vampire Survivors cross over with Castlevania? I mean, of course, it's already Castlevania, so there's reasoning
I think that's
behind
the joke,
it.
right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
How did the Among Us crossover go, by the way? We never really kind of did a follow up on that besides talking about it coming.
I mean, I played it. There's an adventure. I don't know. The characters are interesting, but I just don't know enough about Among Us to like get the jokes.
Yeah.
Like the weapons, like space rocks. They're rocks from space. And I'm like, is this significant? Like the only joke I got is like the card swipe joke, but that's because that was memed to death.
Right.
That like you could like you had to find the exact speed to swipe the card. And that's a weapon where like cards swipe across the screen. So it's interesting. But you know, it just felt like more Vampire Survivor content. It wasn't significant, which is why like Operation Guns.
Sounds like it also. Well, it sounds like it wasn't offensive either, is what I'm
No.
right?
I don't play as those characters. I tend to avoid the weapons. With the latest patch prior to Operation Guns, they added another like I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's not skip. It's like the ability to disable things in your collection so that you can sort of cater your Vampire Survivors experience, get the weapons and items that you want, and avoid the weapons and items that you don't want, which is important. Like, that's an important thing to do because they've added, you know, the Moonspell DLC, the Foscari DLC, the Among Us DLC, the Operation Guns DLC. So if you want to play the game like it was before that, you can block out all of the items from those DLCs. And you can filter to do that, which is kind of nice. Or you can do what I did and like, you know what I never want? Holy water. I never want crosses. I never want the items that upgrade those items. Like, it's been interesting. Operation Guns, the one Contra level is fantastic. The Contra themed level is so good because it is so many different Contra biomes existing on that map, and that's very fun. The level 20, the minute 25 boss is the first boss from Contra 3: The Alien Wars, which is interesting. But then if you get to like the minute 28, you have a minute to get to a location where Big Fuzzy, the like big Terminator inspired robot, will show up. And that fight, it feels like you're playing Contra in Vampire Survivors. I don't know how they freaking did it, but they did it. You're still not in control of the weapons, but yeah. And it's all that. So, like, that is one where I am familiar with. I mean, I've played Contra since I was 7 years old in 1991, while friggin' Yaguchi was playing Street Fighter 1 with the high score girl. So I have a lot of Contra knowledge, and I had just lost myself to Operation Galuga earlier this year. So I'm getting and catching all the references. So I imagine that for like Among Us players, that map being so many different varied biomes and like having the recreation of the ship and things like that, that's probably fun for them. I don't have that connection to that world, but I have the connection to Contra, and it's awesome. The weapons that they choose, how they implement them, the fact that to upgrade them, they've introduced a whole other power-up that you have to have that does not count against you for your passives. Like, they did the work to make that one, like, feel special. And I've really enjoyed it. But I am excited to start from zero, because I'm never going to start from zero on the PC. I've been cultivating that game save since our super bad episode back in April of 2022. Like, I don't want to lose all of that progress. Xbox Game Pass, that one is very different. The Switch, I haven't gone back to the Switch version because it wasn't as good, because the Switch couldn't handle everything that the other versions could. But I think that the PS5 is probably going to be able to handle everything on screen without much slowdown, and I'm very interested to go in and get that platinum, complete all the achievements in that game. And to do it without looking, because now, like, new content comes out, and I definitely try to solve the puzzles all on my own, but then once I do it, you're not wrong. I'm going to hit the wiki, and I'm going to be like, oh, what do I want to, like, mess around with this time? What am I going to disable so that I can get this build and try to play with it? And even outside of, like, the wiki, I just talk to people on the Discord. Like, I'm active on the Vampire Survivors Discord, more so than I am on most other gaming Discords. So what about you, though? I feel like I've been talking for a long time.
No, I love the idea of you doing the Vampire Survivors wiki stuff and being on the Discord and getting and passing information, and that being such a big part of that game for you. And then hearing about how much disdain you had for that in, like, Tunic and, like, Fez and what's the new one? The
Animal
one
Well.
like
So
Animal Well, yeah.
The difference is, and this is, and I think this might be why, is that, like, Vampire Survivors, I got in on early access, so it feels like I was part of it. Animal Well and stuff like that, like, I enjoyed my playthrough of Animal. I recommend everybody play Animal Well. Wait for a sale. That is the thing that I'm going to say. But, like, Dale is currently playing through Animal Well, and she's having a blast with it. I don't think she will ever go deeper than the first layer of Animal Well. Maybe she'll collect all of the eggs, but I would be surprised if she did it without some sort of guide. Right? Even I ended up using a guide to get the last 2 eggs that I just could not find. Right? But, like, there's no way she's going to find all the secret bunnies. There's no way she's going to find and solve the, like, AC map to the final collectible in that game. Because, like, she's enjoying it for what it is, but, like, I don't think that aspect of it will interest her. and that's fine.
You never know, man.
Like that's true. I mean, I started Fez as well. I wanted to give a little more time in it. That's a weird game. That's what I have to say about Fez. I don't like how floaty he is. But I guess I don't feel like the difference between something like Fez and Animal Well is that Animal Well, I kind of always felt like I was working towards something. Fez, I just feel like I'm walking around and occasionally finding gold blocks. And that's weird. I don't know where I am from where I started. Here's another gold block. And I guess I'll go forward from here. I don't know how to get back to where I was.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that for sure, especially as somebody that is not looking for the ARG the whole time. It's not the it's Fez is definitely a wild game.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that it was revolutionary at its time, but as we've pointed out, there's so many games that have learned from it now that do this thing.
Yeah.
Pull this trick of the meta game aspect that it's not necessarily the best one there is anymore,
Yeah.
But yeah, I have actually been spending all of my time with Paper Mario, man.
Congratulations. I am an idiot Here's the thing about Paper Mario, and then you will have the floor. I have gotten to the titular 1,000-Year Door twice on the GameCube version and then not finished the game. And in 1,000-Year Door for Switch,
played 30 minutes and then just gave up. Is that what you mean?
No. I've gotten to the end of it. I've walked through the TTYD, and then there's stuff that happens there. I don't want to spoil in case you've never gotten there or anything like that. And the first one, it was a rental, and I was unable to finish it in the rental period, and that kind of sucked. And then the Summer of Slether, when we were we had finished it and we were hiring production assistants and things like that, and it was becoming a real thing. One of the production assistants and I just hung out all the time at his house, and his sister had bought Paper Mario the 1,000-Year Door. So what we did was just play 1,000-Year Door. And as background noise is the reason why if I get a white Yoshi, I'll have to name it Butt Dart. And that's not a clever name, but that's what we thought was funny 20 years ago, the summer after I graduated high school. We're oh, Butt Dart is a funny name for this Yoshi. And it's only the white Yoshi, right? Because we got the white Yoshi, and that's fine. And then we lost our progress. His sister had erased his game because she was mad at him. So we bought our own memory card, and we had to start from the beginning. Somehow still got a white Yoshi. I know there's all sorts of ways to do it. Renamed him Butt Dart because it would have felt wrong not to. And then we got all the way to the end of it, and then college started. So our endless summer of Paper Mario came to an end.
Yeah.
So I'm I want to play it. I you know what I still haven't played Princess Peach Showtime. I'll be completely honest with you. Own it, installed it, have not booted it up.
I did that one for a bit in May too, man. Princess Peach Showtime is a fun one, but I want you to play it a bit so we can talk more about it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Vibe-wise, it definitely hits the same vibes that a lot of Luigi's Mansion.
That's what it felt like from the demo.
Yeah. There's some stuff going on there, but in terms of gameplay, not that at all. So there's some stuff to talk about there. So Princess Peach Showtime, that is still going on in the background. That's one that I like playing in front of the family because it's fun to see all the cool stuff, and it's easy to pick up and hand the controller off and stuff like that. Paper Mario is for me, right? The family still enjoys watching the silliness of it and on that, but I am the one playing that game, right? So I just I've been playing it all hours of the day. Literally this morning I was up at 5 a.m. So I just sat down and played a little bit of Paper Mario before we recorded today, that kind of thing. And I have always loved this one. 1,000-Year Door has always been kind of just my Paper Mario game. Loved the Origami King a lot, but this is always I think going to be my favorite one in this series. And in terms of the remaking aspects of it. It just looks gorgeous. There's just some color stuff going on that's phenomenal. There's some ways in which the camera moves now that are really cool. It always had kind of that look to it where the camera angles would change so that you could see behind things. That was always really cute and funny. But the ways in which they employ that now, and the smoothness of the camera movements and the ways in which the world just twists and bends is just amazing. Yeah, there's just so much good stuff going on in it. I love the story, the whole concept of going to these different kingdoms and gaining these abilities that you can do with your paper body. And like I feel like they never really recaptured that in until the Origami King. Because like the weirdness of the Wii one where like you could change the perspective from like 2D to 3D was a cool idea, but it didn't really get much deeper than that. Whereas like in this one, in Thousand Year Door, you know, the ability to become a paper airplane, the ability to turn sideways to fit through small spaces. You know, there's all of these different things. Plus, then you have your buddy abilities, what they're able to do too. They just all of them are so like obvious in playing Thousand Year Door, but really like the fact that this kind of stuff doesn't show up enough in the other Paper Mario games tells you how actually kind of badass it is that they are here, right? There's definitely buddy abilities in the other games, but they're the depth of them and the number of times you're kind of asked to employ them and like use them, the necessity of them, I guess, in this game is like no other Paper Mario game.
Yeah, it's interesting because we always talk about how like the sequel is the more refined package, and the first Paper Mario for N64 for me is a whirlwind. I had done a Dr. Topper's quiz on some Super Mario RPG website, and I had qualified to be in this big trivia thing, and I needed to play Paper Mario for that trivia thing. So I rented it from Blockbuster before I worked there and beat it in 3 days. Not enjoying Paper Mario at all. But now, like with the benefit of hindsight, it kind of feels like the Paper Mario was just forgettable. It wasn't the fact that I rushed through it that made me forget it. It's the fact that they had this concept, they worked that concept out, but they didn't go as far with it as they could or should have. And then Thousand Year Door comes out, TTYD, and that game goes all the way and then some. And every Paper Mario game after it has been chasing that dragon. And that it hasn't worked. I mean, I beat Super Paper Mario. I own Super Paper Mario for the Wii. I really enjoy that game, but it's not an RPG. It is very much like a platformer that has like people that you interact with.
Yeah, like that mechanic that we were talking about with like the world switch, like it doesn't feel very puzzly. Like it feels like this is just a cool new way to introduce new platforming abilities, but it doesn't feel like I'm solving things by doing that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like the biggest puzzle in that is the sewers in that game, and honestly, that's just the sewers puzzle from Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Right? Like it feels like it's a relic, a remnant of that world. Yeah. It's so like that.
But it is but this game is reminding me though how much I really did enjoy my time with the Origami King, because like I really do feel like it is a true, honest to God follow up to Thousand Year Door. I think Thousand Year Door is still the better game, and that's probably more my nostalgia speaking than anything else. But like the puzzle mechanics of the fights in Origami King, the stories and the characters, and then the in-world puzzles you need to solve in order to get around are they are clearly on the same level as the stuff in Thousand Year Door. So like that felt really good to like be playing this game and to be remembering that like, oh yeah, I think when I finish this, I think I'm gonna do Origami King again, because like this is just feeling really good right now.
I was really burned by Sticker Star. I was at the Toys R Us before they opened to pick it up. And then the best part about that day was getting to meet Eric Carl. Or it was, maybe it was meeting Eric Carl, or maybe it was Peter Laird being like, Devon, I'd like to introduce you to my wife and daughter. Like, he recognized me. That always feels cool when somebody recognizes you, who are like, but you're Peter Laird, you invented the Turtles. But like Sticker Star did not really track on that day as something that happened. Great. I mean, I also met Eric frickin' Carl, right? In his last public appearance before he passed away. So, like, it was a pretty big day. And Sticker Star was just kind of garbage. Did you ever mess around with that game at all?
A little bit, and years later in like emulator.
Yeah.
This is like not yeah, I did not own that game. No, I that one, and what was the color one? Wasn't
Color
there was
Splash,
a color one?
the one on Wii
Color
U.
Splash. I'm remembering. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one I touched for 2 seconds because a friend had it, and they were already introducing it to me in the window of, I don't want to play this game. Look at it. And I was like, oh, I don't really want to sit here and play a game in front of you that you don't even want to be playing, and I'm not really quite enjoying either, so let's not do this. So, like, those two games are kind of games I have not really ever dove fully into. But original Paper Mario was fun. I remember loving it, and because I did not know that, like, Mario could be, like, funny. Like, that kind of thing, you know? Like,
Fair. I get
was
that,
like,
yeah.
oh my god, it's Mario RPG? I was like, this is so cool. But beyond that, like, I don't really remember much about it. Thousand Year Door, I've got tons of memories because, like, we owned it on a GameCube when I was in high school, so like I was playing it all the time and like replaying it with friends and stuff, and yeah, so I just have this big nostalgia like for this game in particular, and so far this remake is totally doing right by it, so it's just been a blast.
That's awesome. I mean, like, I want to chase my personal dragon with that. I'd really like to just sit on a couch for days at a time just playing Paper Mario and having fights about superheroes and supervillains, because he just got like 500 comic book villains, and it was like a coffee table book. So while I was playing, he would be like testing me, like, who's this villain? And I'm like, well, you know, and it was just like this magical moment that I know I can never get back. But like, I think that's what is keeping me from getting as immersed into Thousand Year Door remake as I could. Is that I'm not able to just sit on a couch with somebody and play through the game. And that's what I want to do. And I don't know if I'll be able to do it, Sage, and I'll just be honest with you. But I'm glad that you're enjoying it.
My week's been.
That's good. I watched Inspector Gadget 2. That's the last thing I'm going to do. Inspired by our Flintstones thing, I'm like, I'm going to watch Inspector Gadget 2 with French Stewart. It's the superior Inspector Gadget movie. Come fight me, Matthew Broderick. Because you know what it
is. The first one even a movie? Wasn't there like a legal dispute with that film because it was like an hour and 10 minutes long or something?
Oh, possibly. I would believe it. The movie's golf.
I seem to remember there being something about the original Inspector Gadget, and there being, I can't remember if it was like a woman sued because it was so short, or like certain theaters were not going to carry it because it was so, there was something about the length of it and about how short it was that was leading to some problems with that movie. That was like the big thing I remember about that film.
It's an hour and 18 minutes. So yeah, it is 78 minutes long. So there is definitely there could have been an issue with that. That does not surprise me at all.
Oh yeah, so it's 78 minutes long, and it because of its heavy usage of CGI in the early 2000s, aren't like 10 of those minutes credits?
Yeah. Here's what I'm reading right here. Original version ran 110 minutes. After previews, the film was cut down to its current length of 78 minutes, and most of it is credits. Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that movie as much as I love Matthew Broderick and Jolie Fisher and everything. But, you know, I watched the Flintstones movie, and as a result of that, I watched a little bit of Viva Rock Vegas. So then I'm like, I'm going to check out Inspector Gadget 2. And it's an honest-to-God Inspector Gadget movie. Like, right down to the fact that it is like an episode of the series. And it's weird. I mean, it's weird that it's French Stewart, but the difference between Inspector Gadget and Matthew Broderick's Inspector Gadget is that, like, he wants to be a hero and he's also insecure. Like, Inspector Gadget is one of the most confident motherfuckers in the world. You want to talk about, like, origins of Devon? I think my confidence might come from watching Inspector Gadget as a child.
No, the joke is, in fact, rather that he is overconfident. Right?
Yeah,
he
exactly.
He is so confident in his ability to use his abilities that he kind of fucks it up.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this great moment where, like, that's clearly what French Stewart is doing with the character, and then he does that, but then he's like, no, I don't want that though. That was just my confidence talking. Like, I recommend it. You got Disney Plus, probably. watch Inspector Gadget 2. That's the Devon Decker Say Report recommendation of the week.
Fantastic.
I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about before we go? I mean, I feel like we barely scratched the surface with some other crazy things that happened this week, but I don't know if I have the mental freaking bandwidth.
Yeah, we're still regrouping. We're good.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Excellent. So this has been the Say Report. I'm Devin Decker. He's Sejohn Sarwick. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe. If you go to us on any of the social media platforms around, which is mostly Facebook and X, formerly Twitter, you can find links to our Discord. Join us in the Discord, and you can hear us Say Report all week. One of the interesting things that's been going on in the Discord is the fact that Jeopardy seemed to be on board for the fact that it was Brendan Fraser History Month in May, with the just kind of absurd number of Brendan Fraser related clues that were happening. They also might listen to the Say Report, which is a pet thing that I've believed for a while, because they kind of touched on the OPP divide with another clue from this past week. So,
nice.
Who knows? That's it. But join us in the Discord. We'd love to hear from you, because you just heard from us. But with that, there's not much else I can say besides, William, please bring us home. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Sejohn Sarwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.